Hey everybody, I hope you are well on this windy, chilly Friday, although I'm hearing tell that it's going to be maybe 60 degrees next week. I'm ready. I don't know about you. Um, had a busy week this week. I'm home today, but I think it's the only day this week that I've been back sitting in the district behind my home desk. Lots of conversations this week on energy, tackling energy costs. So we had a hearing in the Energy and Technology Committee this week on a few competing proposals for how to tackle really, some of Connecticut's really high energy costs. And, there's widespread agreement of a lot of people focused on how to do it, different approaches to doing it. So the hearing was quite long, but really interesting. And I was at least able to be in person for the first couple hours of it. And then I had to come and go because I had other obligations in finance of dealing with other funding issues. It was part of I also, thanks to several of you who have been experiencing, who shared with me your bills, basically, I was able to go back and look at the last couple of years of several people with sort of different, footprints, and take a look at trends over the last several years. And I finally this week was able to sit down with Eversource and really go through the details on those bills and what they mean. And I wanted to share some of those highlights with you. So a couple of things that I learned. One, and my recommendations to you, if you switch to a third-party energy supplier, as many people did when rates really spiked in 2022 and 2023, check to make sure you're not overpaying, because I had a couple people who switched at that height and they have been locked in at that very high rate. When all the other rates have come down, their third-party supplier has not reduced the rate, despite the fact that they are offering significantly lower rates to new customers. They're still charging their old customers that very high spiky rate, when the standard service rate has also come down in the interim. So good idea to check that, and I'll circle back to how you check that. Another thing is your energy usage. I had a couple people whose energy usage just really skyrocketed. I thought, he must have bought an EV. No, he didn't buy an EV. So what's is to try, really important to try to figure that out. Of course, energy usage varies, if it's very hot or if it's very cold, of course, our energy usage goes up. Sometimes if you have kids coming home for the weekend, that they use more energy. Or again, if you get an EV or something like that. Sometimes there's no obvious explanation for it. And so your home might be really energy inefficient. And both of those issues with respect to whether the rate you're paying today is competitive and whether you're using more energy really than you need to. Energize CT has programs that can help you figure that out. You can qualify, or for a low, I think a copay of $75, get somebody to come out to your house to do a home energy audit, who can make recommendations and changes right on the spot and write up some longer term recommendations. And they have really been able to deliver significant energy savings to people throughout the district. And they also have a website that can help you compare the rates quite clearly and easily. And thanks to legislation that we passed in last term, you now can switch. You're not stuck with that third-party energy supplier. I was myself shocked that third-party supplier had not, everyone else reduced their rates, except that they left that, their ratepayer at that high rate. And it's hard. Those bills are complicated. I myself, looking at other people's bills, had to sit down with Eversource and others and make sure that I understood all the pieces in it. So those are two big recommendations. The other thing, of course, the public benefits charge. In the bills that I looked at, it made up about 10% of the bill, which if you have a big bill can be a big number. It is usage based. So the less energy you use, the lower that charge is going to be too. All of it's going to be lower. The public benefits charge has gone, it's about triple today what it was a couple of years ago. And that 75% of that is due to our long-term contract with Millstone, which locks in rates. And so it helps us when energy prices spiked in, say, 2022 with the Ukraine war. But right now, and, since other energy prices have come down, it now is costly. And so that cranks up about 75% of that public benefits charge. And the rest is largely due to a pandemic, the pandemic shutoff program. We've had a lot of conversations. That part of your bill, first of all those people on that program are on payment plans, but that's going to come off your bill in May. That was a short-term thing and it's disappearing. So at least that part will go away. The other thing, that if you installed solar panels, I just take a look on your bill. I know many of you know this, but your solar generation is going to be noted on your Eversource bill. Take a look at how much, whether it's been consistent over time. Of course, it differs depending on the time of year. Weather does affect it. Snow, of course, limits their utility. But if you see, long-term trend changes, make sure you check in with your solar provider and have them, take a look to make sure things are working as expected. And then another part of the hearing and to keep our eyes on, of course, is we purchase energy through an organization that's called ISO New England. It's part of a group of purchasers in New England states. And some of it comes from Canada and some of it comes, from New York through Canada. So we will be affected by tariffs on Canadian energy, those 10% tariffs. We're not sure the quantum of that yet, but that's not going to help us reduce energy costs. So we got to keep an eye on that one too. The other stuff that we are starting to feel the pinch of in a variety of ways is loss of federal funding. I heard from a lot of people working in land conservation that some funding sources had suddenly disappeared. And of course, there have been headlines recently. We're trying to calculate what our risk is of losing Medicaid from the federal government. And our best estimate now is that Connecticut will lose anywhere from $500 million to $2 billion in Medicaid from the federal government. We don't know yet what number it is because we're not sure what the approach will be, but neither end of that is good. And so we're doing a lot of math on how to figure out how we might be able to backstop that. As a little background, in Medicaid, in Connecticut, Medicaid is known as the Husky program, and about 1 in 4 people have used it or are using the Husky program. Which helps a lot of kids and families in the state of Connecticut. It also provides long-term care. My mother, at the very end of her life, relied on Medicaid, and it helps a lot of people long-term care. So we're very concerned about that and trying to figure out our way through. Just a couple of other notes. We did have session this week. It's a little bit technical because we had session last week in which we passed $40 million of spending on special education and some other nonprofits. The governor didn't like he agreed with us that spending was appropriate, but he didn't like the way it was done. So we tweaked it a little bit and the numbers stayed the same. And we essentially repassed that legislation. We did not override a veto, but we repassed legislation and the governor has since signed that. So I'm happy we can send a little more short-term relief to our schools who are really feeling the weight of that special education costs. I also just want to note, I went to a wonderful event last night organized by many in our community at Trinity Lime Rock Church. It was a forum on immigration, keynoted by Attorney General William Tong. And there were over 200 people, I think nearly 200 people in the room, and another 50 or so people online. Just a great group, trying to focus on helping their neighbors and making sure we understand what people's rights are and to make sure we treat people with humanity and kindness and, while following the rules and making sure we take care of each other. So I want to thank everyone who participated in that. It was really nice to be there. Of course, the at least for me, the bad end of daylight savings time happens this weekend when we have to spring forward. So it will be a little darker in the morning when we have to get up. But I have a couple of other events that I just want to flag. The Canaan Valley Agricultural Co-op meeting on March 12th, which I'm really very much looking forward to checking in with our farmers. And the Northwest Hills COG Legislative Breakfast. Again, the COG stands for Council of Governments, and they're sort of our substitute for county government in Connecticut. And we'll be having a legislative panel with them on March 19th. So see you out there. Have a great weekend.